What's up, players? Welcome to my round 14 tips. This year is going like way too fast. But before we get into that, I'm actually going to show you how many I got right last round. So I got 6 out of 8. Obviously, in my video, I would have only gotten 5 out of 8. But I changed my tip late from Essendon to Carlton. Thankfully, I did. But yeah, I got the first tip wrong. I did expect the Dogs to beat us. I'm not going to lie. I did think it was going to be comfortable. Obviously, as I put them by 27, I didn't really think we were a chance. I expected us to play better and perform better, and God, did we. Efficiency heading inside 50 was still really bad, but, doing very, very well. Adelaide got this one right against the Lions. They're just playing phenomenal, and we have to verse them this week, unfortunately. Sydney, like I said, I expected them to bounce back. Although I did expect Richmond to be more competitive, nearly put up their lowest score in God knows how long. This, a rainy game, but got it wrong. GMHBA Stadium, knew the Cats would get the job done. Did not expect this one. I don't know what's going on with GWS, but apparently they don't know how to win a game of football. They're weird. They're back on the fraud watch. They're still in the 8, but, good win for Port Adelaide. But in fairness to Port Adelaide, you don't want to be losing 5 in a row. North Melbourne, I would have hoped won. Nearly lost. Went down by 15 at one point or something like that. And in a low-scoring game, that is a lot. Carlton, obviously, I switched my tip late, got that one right. And then Collingwood barely, robbed Melbourne across the line. So, 6 out of 8, we take it. Let's get into our actual tips. And that starts with this Thursday night. Stop giving St Kilda primetime games, for the love of God. But they take on the Dogs at Marvel Stadium. And, similar to kind of the Hawks in a way. Like, the Dogs, as scary as they've been, they're not even in the 8. They are not even in the 8. Which is, kind of shocking, to be honest. But I do expect them to bounce back here. Weirdly, I kind of want to tip St Kilda because they did have a decent performance against, Melbourne. And, of course, they had the bye last round. But, St Kilda have just been so bad. 2 wins in their last 8 games? Correct me if I'm wrong. Something like that. That is appalling. I mean, they started 3-1. They sit 12th currently. But I expect the Dogs really to win here. Sam Darcy will be back, or should be at least. That's what was said. He didn't come back against the Hawks, thank the Lord. But they got Treloar back. Whether they get JJ back as well, not sure. But I'm going to play it safe. Although I can see the Saints being them weird selves and kind of getting into some form and just beating some ridiculously good teams. I'm going to back the Dogs here, and I've got them to win by 19 points. Friday night, the Hawks in Tassie take on Adelaide. Just look at how close the percentages in tipping. Absolutely crazy. I believe on the app that I actually use to tip, 68% of the tippers are going with the Hawks, but that's just on that specific app. But, overall, 51, 49%. It's going to be a belter. Adelaide are in some crazy form. They've won, 6 of their last 7, I believe, with a 10-point loss to Collingwood at the G, which is nothing to be ashamed about because Collingwood are a terrific side, as they, very well showed us. The Hawks, off 3 losses, needed to win, did win in pretty good fashion. The pressure anteed up massively. 82 tackles last week, compared to 74 in the 2 weeks combined prior to that. So the pressure really went up. Jack Ginnivan is in flying form. The numbers he's putting up since, the VFL is absolutely absurd. He's averaging nearly 20 touches, nearly 2 goals a game, 7 score involvements. I mean, the guy is crazy. Nick Watson expected to come back this week. Jack Scrimshaw, not sure whether he's going to come back in the side. Will Cam McKenzie come in? Will McGuinness go out? Will Sam Butler remain in the side? There's a lot of questions. Will Kausha come in for Ramsden, or are we going to give Rammer another week, as Kausha did have a pretty good performance in the VFL, kicking 3 goals. So there's a lot of questions within our side, with what lineup that we're going to go with. But this is going to be a cracking game. And unfortunately, I can't watch this. I have work. All right, so I'll watch probably the first nearly hour of this game. But after that, it's just going to be nerves. But luckily, my record last year for missing games was 2-0. We beat the Dogs by 7 points, and we smashed the Pies. So maybe, hopefully, that can continue. But as good as we did last week, coming off 3 losses, Adelaide are in just flying form again. What, 6 of their last 7 with only a loss to Collingwood? They've beaten some bloody good teams, beat a really good team who whacked us last week in the Lions. I'm going to tip Adelaide, as crazy as that sounds. I just think completely different side to obviously what the Dogs are. They're just gonna rampage, and I think they're really going to stay top 4 this season, and really surge. I don't see them losing any more than 2 games for the rest of the year, if I'm going to be honest. They've got a decently easy fixture, and even the tough games they have, like a Collingwood and a Hawthorn again after this, it's in Adelaide. So I'm going to tip Adelaide by just 2 points. I think it's going to be one of the games of the year. Hopefully the weather isn't too bad, but yeah, I'm going to back the Crows here. Brisbane take on GWS at the Gabba. Now, this one's a tough one. I know you're probably like, tough? How? Brisbane are second, GWS sits seventh, and GWS literally just lost to a bottom 4 Port Adelaide side. But Brisbane, I don't know, it would just be a Brisbane thing to do, to have a really good performance and then just kind of off. You know what I mean? I mean, they lost to Melbourne, basically lost to North, drew with North, I should say, whacked the Hawks, and then they lose to the Crows and put up, 63 points the week after. I'm not saying that that's bad considering it is the Crows. But, do I trust them at home? I mean, they've been a bit shaky there. They barely beat Essendon there as well. A half-injured Essendon side, I should tell you. So, I don't know. They're just weird. They're still second on the ladder, but they're just not playing, really good and trustful footy that you can, definitely be like, yeah, I'm tipping this team. But I am ultimately going to go Brisbane. As much as I think GWS could just pull off something crazy, especially after a disappointing loss, I can't not back Brisbane at the Gabba, who are just... I don't even know how to explain it. These are 2 teams that, GWS especially, were expected to be... Well, there was a lot of premiership picks and premiership favourites. I tipped them to finish 6. I wasn't all about it. I thought they would start sluggish and then kind of fly towards the end of the season, which... sorta, but also didn't happen. I mean, they were 4-1. Since then, they're 3-5. So, and Brisbane, sure, they're playing bad, but they're picking up wins. So I'm going to tip them here, and I'm going to tip them by, just 2 goals. I'm going to tip them by, but I'm not entirely confident. But hopefully, come game time, the nerves are settled, because I'm really trying to get all tips right this week. I feel like it's very possible with only 7 games, and considering a lot of them are kind of freebie tips. But yeah, I'm going to go Brisbane by 2 goals. Essendon take on Geelong at the G. This is the first time they play them in, the next, 7 weeks. Kind of crazy. Geelong also have, they just have an easy run home. I'm expecting Geelong to lose literally 1 more game of the season. And even then, I feel like they won't lose a game. They're going to finish first or second, Geelong. Mark my words right now. You can clip this. You can screen record it to come back later. They will finish in the top 2 this season. I'm 100% sure. Their run home is the easiest. They're in some flying form. They're the second best team in the league. And, despite being a lot, 3 games, I think they were behind Brisbane at one stage, 2 or 3 games, they're now just 2 points off. So, and with Brisbane to play at GMHBA, I feel like Geelong can most definitely beat them there and then take over their spot. So, it'll just be a percentage thing with Adelaide, but I expect Adelaide to drop more games than Geelong. Geelong won't drop this game. Essendon, as much credit as I want to give them, they were good against Carlton, they were good against Brisbane, considering they have half a VFL side. It is Carlton and Brisbane compared to Geelong. I think Geelong are better than, obviously Carlton and Brisbane, especially currently. Geelong are just firing. Bailey Smith hopefully will be back for the Cats. I do think he is expected. Dangerfield will be a lot more comfortable. Max Holmes is popping off, going absolutely crazy, as is Myers. Jeremy Cameron's been a bit quiet, but that doesn't matter when you've got, a firing forward line. Stengel's in there as well. I mean, he had the most aura photo that you'll ever see. That back line, with Henry, Stewart, I don't know if you're like, it's just going crazy. It is crazy. Their side is stacked. I'm expecting Geelong to win this by, a comfortable 5 goals. And nothing else really needs to be said. I mean, they're just flying. Essendon, you are 10th. You're not doing horrible. All things considered, your kids are showing up, and I think they'll show up again. But I think the 5 goal margin won't actually resemble how well Essendon play. I think they'll play like pretty well considering it is Geelong, but Geelong are the best team in the league, especially what Collingwood just showed against Melbourne. I think Geelong just sneak over Collingwood as the current best team in the league, especially considering Geelong was Collingwood's only loss in like their last, 8 games? Their last 10 games. Or 11. 11, yeah, because they lost it. Collingwood at 10-1 and they lost 11, and that loss was to Geelong. So yeah, I'm going to go Geelong by 5 goals. They comfortably beat the Bombers. Fremantle take on North Melbourne. This graphic is technically wrong because this is a North Melbourne home game. How the fuck are you going to sell out games to North Melbourne at, in Perth and make them play one of the sides that owns the home ground? Makes no fucking sense. But obviously I'm going to go the Dockers here. They're finally finding some form. They're in the 8. As poor as they've been this year, they're in the 8. So, fair play to them. Obviously they had the bye last round, and then the round before that they had the very impressive win over Gold Coast at People's First. I think that was Gold Coast's first loss in the Gold Coast. Correct me if I'm mistaken. And then they whacked Port Adelaide at home by 50. So they're in some decent form. The Dockers. So yeah, they're just firing. I haven't watched a lot of them. I won't lie because, I didn't watch their Gold Coast game, and I wasn't going to sit down and watch. Usually it's just being busy and stuff. But the tipping, I'm surprised isn't more in their favour. But yeah, they've won their last 3, Fremantle, so obviously before that game, they also beat the Giants away. So not only are they winning at home, but they're winning away, and they're doing it by comfortable margins. I think they're flying now, and they could even make a late top 4 surge, because I do expect Gold Coast to fall off a little bit, but I think the current top 4 will stay the top 4. And then Hawthorn and Fremantle will fight for that 5th spot. I think Gold Coast inevitably drop to 7th. I don't think they quite hold on to staying higher up in the top 8, but they will finish in the final spot, and then it's out of GWS and the Dogs, maybe Essendon. Carlton could surge in late as well for that last final spot. Other than that, I think the rest of the teams are kind of done, because I just think you've stretched too far. St Kilda, Sydney, Melbourne and Port all on 5 wins, but 2 wins clear of the top 8. I know Carlton's in the same situation, but their fixture is heaps easier than any of the teams I just named, and I think they're more capable as a side, and they've done it before in 2023, so I'd say your top 11 are fighting for your 8 now, so it's really closing in early. But anyway, back to this. Fremantle, they will win, they will surge. This will be a percentage booster, could be 6th place, even 5th, if somehow, percentage-wise, everything just goes their way. Gold Coast have the bye, I believe. And then if Hawthorn do lose to Adelaide, like I'm predicting, they could actually surge up to 5th, but it would take like a massive, massive win. But 6th place is looking on. Anyway, I'm going to go to the Dockers. I'm going to go to the Dockers by 50 points. Port Adelaide take on Melbourne. Now, Port Adelaide had an impressive win. After losing 4 in a row, they did, go on to beat the Giants away from home at an awkward oval, of course. And then the D's, were in some good form, but they've now lost their last 2. Against Collingwood, you can kind of be remorseful, but that loss to St Kilda is kind of just, not acceptable. And then obviously they had 2 wins before that, and then the loss to Hawthorn. But, they were finding some decent form, Melbourne, but it's kind of just slipping away. And considering Port Adelaide have the game in hand, they're really going to take advantage of this one. A win here could put Port 11th and right back in the finals race. And considering they do have some easy-ass weeks, I expect them to win 4 of their next 5, if I'm going to be real. I think they're capable of that. And that loss will be to Brisbane, by the way, which who knows what could happen. You just don't know what will happen in footy anymore. But I'm going to back Port Adelaide at home here. As much as I do get behind Melbourne and do think they can be quality, I do expect Port Adelaide to win at home here and, keep the finals chances alive in Ken Hinkley's last season. I'm going to go Port Adelaide. I'm going to go them by 22 points. And we'll just have to see how this one goes, really. Last game of the round, probably going to be the most boring game of the round. I know, how many easy games are there to tip? West Coast take on the Blues. That'll come back to haunt me, won't it? Like, watch Carlton lose this now. But, Carlton are the better side. They're pushing for finals. They've won only 2 of their last 4. Obviously, they've still been shaky all year. Losses to Sydney and GWS. Beat the Bombers barely. So, honestly, and then they barely beat St Kilda when St Kilda had one win in their last 7. Or at the time, I think it was 1 win in their last 4 or 5 when they had actually played St Kilda. But still, that's still god-awful. So they're struggling even when they're winning. Like, struggling against the VFL Essendon side when you proclaimed yourselves to be top 4 contenders this season. I know not every Blues fan said that, but, a lot of, people that know what they're talking about would have predicted Carlton to still make the 8, I would assume. Maybe just miss out. I put them just in. I think I put them 8th, actually. Or maybe I had them just missing. I can't even remember my own predictions. It was too long ago. It was only 4 months ago. But, they need to start getting on a roll, and they need to take advantage of the back end of the year, just like they did in 2023. They've got a very easy fixture. This is a very winnable game. You don't win this, you can definitely close the book on your season. You can nearly already do that now, but I think they're still alive slightly. I'm backing the Blues by 40 here. West Coast, they're just lucky West Coast are that bad. They've won 1 game all year. They're 1-12. Like, you didn't think it could get darker, did you? Well, that's all my tips done, actually. I completely forgot there's only 7 games, but let me give you a recap. I've got the Dogs to beat the Saints, Adelaide to upset the Hawks. Well, not really an upset, but to beat the Hawks in Tassie, the last time these 2 sides played in Tassie, Adelaide did beat them. Brisbane at home to get the win against the Giants, Geelong to thump the Bombers, Fremantle to thrash North at North's home game, even though it's the home stadium of Fremantle. Anyway, Port Adelaide to beat Melbourne and Carlton to whack the Eagles. Pretty simple round. I feel like 7 out of 7 is definitely possible, but knowing football, St Kilda might win, GWS might win, and then Melbourne might win, and then boom, I have 4 out of 7 and I look just awful. But my 3 guarantees will be the Dogs, the Cats, and Fremantle. Am going a bit more safer with my 3 guarantees this week. We have 75 or 76 tips. The app is technically wrong. It actually switched my tip again, as I said, from Collingwood to Essendon. There was no way I was genuinely tipping Essendon, unless I just pressed on the wrong one by accident when I actually just quickly went through them. I technically do have 76 for the year, which, still is not the greatest, but hopefully, this round's relatively easy. Hopefully, it's going to really be on the Hawks and Adelaide game, which will split tippers up. So hopefully I'm on the right side of that. But actually, I kind of hope I'm on the wrong side because I'd rather my boys win. But luckily, after this, we have a few easy games. So, those are my round 14. 14 or 13? Forgot what round it is. But those are my tips. Let me know your thoughts. And we will see you next week. All right!